All right, well, happy evening time, if that is indeed when you're joining. This evening for deep stretch, we are going to be getting into kind of a full body situation. So a quick reminder on what you can expect from Practice Indy's deep stretch class type. That's what we call our yin class. So yin is specifically a style where we hold postures for an extended period of time. There are many, many benefits to that, but the real intention is so that your muscles, your skeleton, your joints, and all that connective tissue have a little bit more time to accept the change that that stretch is initiating. So you might feel a little extra fiery. You might feel your brain kind of try and fill that space. In a lot of our more energetic yoga classes, we're moving a bit more quickly, and we can use that as a distraction. That distraction translates to, oh my God, my brain is so empty. This is amazing. When we do this type of yoga, that brain emptying quality requires just a little bit more focus because you're contending with sometimes a little bit more discomfort. So just know discomfort is very different than pain. If at any point you're experiencing pain, back off, come back to a more comfortable position, and just know that everything is temporary. Cool beans. Props that will come in handy this evening if you don't already have them: a strap, a block, a bolster is nice but not necessary, and then any similar objects to satisfy those other props are great. I'll give you a minute or two to get set up. I'm gonna head to my mat, and if at any point you guys can't hear me, just unmute yourselves, give me a little shout, and we'll make it happen. Alrighty, so just finding yourself in a nice comfortable seat. Does not matter in the slightest what that seat looks like. Maybe it's a traditional sukhasana or a crisscross applesauce, as the kids like to call it. You might have your legs straight out in front of you. You might even be flat on your back if you're just finding that you're pretty low energy today. Before we jump into our practice proper, we're just going to give ourselves a moment to transition out of whatever we were doing before and really come into the present moment of where we are now putting our focus. So as you get settled in that seat, allow your eyes to close. Allow any last minute fidgets or wiggles to just make themselves known in your tissues. Maybe if you're a knuckle cracker, get all of those out of the way. And if you're seated, just find your shoulders floating right above your hips, your head resting perfectly balanced just above your shoulders, and your breath coming easy and even. Just breathing fully and slowly, not controlling anything, but simply noticing how it feels to focus on something that unconsciously we do all day long. Inhale and exhale. Bringing yourself into right now. Not worrying at all if you're doing it right or wrong. Giving yourself full credit for simply showing up. Perhaps you notice that already you start to slow down a little bit. When you close your eyes, your other senses maybe up their sensitivity. So what do you hear? What do you feel? Are there any sensations of smell or taste? And even if there's nothing really perceptible, just celebrate the fact that you have the ability to switch your focus between each of your sensory inputs. That's really what we're practicing here, switching our focus from the outside world to the inside world. From everything external to everything that makes you uniquely you. Take a deep breath in. And open your mouth, sigh that breath out. Start to blink your eyes open. It's okay to keep them kind of heavy and sleepy. We're not going very far. If you have a strap, go ahead and grab it. If you have something similar to a strap, go ahead and grab a hold of it. We want to unravel that strap-like object. And then give yourself a moment here to recline fully onto your back. So maybe you go with bent knees. Maybe you engage your core a little bit here as you recline yourself back. My preference is to keep my knees bent to begin with, but that does not have to be your choice. You can start with legs long and heavy on the mat. Grabbing hold of your strap, it should be unraveled already. Go ahead, send your right foot up in the air and hook that strap around the ball or the arch of your right foot. And then only as your hamstrings are ready, start to extend your right leg straight up in the air. And maybe point and flex, roll your ankle around. Just get used to and accustomed to what's going on in your right leg. So you have one end of the strap in each hand. Maybe here you keep your left foot connected to the floor, or you start to let that leg go long. Good. In every pose in a yin practice, we take the first several moments just to notice and get established. So really take your time here. Notice if there are little shifts or shimmies that you need to get yourself really in place. And then turning your ego off, make sure that you're not really cranking into that hamstring stretch to begin with. We're going to be here for plenty of time for that stretch to intensify. So maybe starting out at like a 4 out of 10 on the intensity scale, you want to feel something, but not everything. The eyes can close once again. The left leg can go heavy on the floor. Just let yourself breathe. Making a little mental catalog of each sensation that phases through that right leg, that right hip, maybe even the back of your right rib cage. Only when you start to notice that those sensations are absent should you start to increase the intensity of the stretch, maybe by pulling a little bit more into the hands. Continue to breathe deeply. An opportunity right here to up the intensity if you'd like for our last 3 rounds of breath. Remembering not to jump off a cliff, but maybe just walk right up to the edge and enjoy the view. We don't have to throw everything that we have at these postures. The intention is to hold them at that point of intensity so that we can accept them in and let that change be more long-lasting. On your next inhale, slowly release that intensity, that pull with the hands, and let both ends of your strap come into your right hand. Your left leg will either stay long on the floor or the sole of the left foot will stay connected to your mat. Your left hand is just gonna rest on your left hip bone. So we wanna make sure that that left hip stays as heavy as possible as we start to open the right leg over to the right side. So the knee can stay straight here as you slowly lower that outer right ankle towards the right side of the room. If that's way too much on your inner thighs, feel free to bend that right knee and allow it to open in more of a gate-like position. So we can mix and match here. Both knees can be bent, both legs can be straight. You can have one of each. And just like we did on that first posture, give yourself a moment or two to feel it out and get settled. One of the benefits to having that left hand on your left hip is that you can slide it over to your belly to double check, make sure you're still breathing. Can you send that breath deep into your belly rather than keeping it up high just in the chest? Lots of good modifications I'm seeing. Yeah, the knee can always bend. Maybe the eyes close. If you're feeling a lot of sensation here, maybe think about the actions, the exercises, or the activities from earlier in your week that might be contributing to the space that you're now finding in your inner thighs. Big breath in. Slow breath out. As you inhale, as slowly as you can, start to bring that right leg back through center, either with the knee bent or the leg straight. Very good. Now, if that left knee is bent, go ahead and lengthen it all the way out onto the floor. As we prepare for a stretch, as we prepare for a twist rather, send both ends of the strap into your left hand. Right arm is going to drop open to the right side. Now, as you guide your right leg over to the left, the leg can stay long or the knee can bend. So maybe try both options, decide which one feels right for you. We want this to be as restful, do air quotes, as restful as possible. So a long leg means that your foot can't rest on the floor, bend the knee, and maybe the foot can rest on the floor then. If not, feel free to use that strap to just hang on to that right leg with your left hand. And just breathe. The breath will be the most restricted here as that right leg crosses over and maybe impinges the diaphragm just a little bit, but use that resistance to make your breaths even more full. Perhaps noticing that even over this short span of time, maybe that right foot has gotten a little closer to the floor or a little heavier as it sinks into the ground. Making sure that that right arm is fully extended out to your right side, perhaps flipping the palm open towards the ceiling. Can you spread your palm as wide as possible and then reach your fingers away from you? Sending that twist not just into your low back, but into your chest, into the front of your right shoulder as well. Big breath in. Full breath out. Soften through that right arm. And on your next inhale, gently bring your right leg back through center. Bending the knee when you feel the back of both hips on the floor. Release that strap and take a full body stretch. So reaching the toes out long, reaching the fingers up overhead, stretch it out. Maybe take a quick mental note if it feels like maybe one leg is longer or shorter than the other. Maybe one hip feels a little more lifted or a little more tense than the other. Just notice those things. And then only as you're ready, we'll switch to the second side. So this time, either with bent knees or long legs, you're gonna bend your left knee, pick your foot up off the floor and hook that strap around the arch or the ball of your left foot. Beginning by slowly extending that left foot straight up in the air. Good. So just noticing, gauging what's going on with the hamstrings. Good. If you are working without any props today, feel free to peek at the screen here and I'll demonstrate how you can hold this shape without using a strap, a towel, anything like that. So rather than using that prop to hang on to keep your leg fully extended, it might look more like fingers interlaced behind the hamstrings. It might mean your knee is bent. If you're a super bendy, flexy person, you might extend your fingers to wrap around the left ankle. That is fully optional, but just know in some way we're reaching that left foot up towards the ceiling. If at any point you're wondering, am I doing this nonsense correctly? If you're feeling a stretch in the back of your left leg, you're getting an A+. You're doing it just right. So this week as a studio, we've been diving into this conversation around Surya. And Surya is the name of the Lord of the sun. In Sanskrit, Surya directly translates to mean sun, S-U-N, that is. And in a lot of our yoga asana practices, we go through a sequence of postures called a sun salutation, or sequence in salutation to Surya. So as you recline here, as you feel your hamstrings heat up, maybe just contemplate all of the symbolism of what the sun represents. Heat, masculinity, intensity, the summer, life, determination. Can you feel those things manifesting in this pose? And at the same time, can you feel yourself wanting to counter those things with more coolness, with more passivity, with more release? Big breath in. Full breath out. If you'd like to up the intensity for your last 3 breaths, maybe now is the time. If you're happy where you are, let this be enough. The beauty of Surya is the consistency of the cyclical nature of how the sun always exists, but not always from our perspective. We revolve around the sun, even though we can't always see it. Next, inhale, slowly release that intensity. Come back through center with that left leg. Very good. Send both ends of the strap into your left hand. Right hand comes to the top of your right hip bone, and preparing yourself to open up through the inner left thigh. Just remember, one knee can bend or both, and slowly begin to let your left leg drop open to the left. It doesn't matter in the slightest what this pose looks like. Instead, search for that telltale sign that you're in the right place. Are you feeling your adductors, your inner thigh, maybe your inner groin muscles stretch? This one can get intense quickly, so dial it back. Perhaps as you experience these postures, not just this one, but the next and the next and the next, when you notice your mind filling with thoughts, can you call to your imagination the image of a cloudless sky, perfectly blue? Can you feel the heat of the sun as it beats down upon you? Keeping that mental image as you look up at the beautiful sun and that perfect blue sky, inevitably the thoughts will drift back in, just like clouds. So if you start to notice those clouds covering up your view of the sun, take a deep breath in, call upon the wind. And as you exhale, blow the clouds away, let your mind empty once again. Next, inhale as slowly as you can. Bring that left leg back through center. Feel it all. Oh yes, so wonderful to let that go. Switching hands with your strap. If you have that right knee bent, go ahead and let it go long on the mat. You're gonna send your left arm out to a T this time, then use your right hand on the strap to guide your left foot over to the right side of the room. Good, one knee can bend, both knees can bend. Just allow yourself, as always, these first few moments to get settled. Maybe on the mat, as we practice that settling in period, we can start applying that to things outside of the yoga room as well. JK, you're all outside of the yoga room right now. Great job applying yoga lessons in your everyday environment. Wherever you are in your breathing, slow it down even more. Extend your inhales by half a second. Extend your exhales by a full second. And then just noticing how many metaphorical clouds are in your sky. Take a deep breath in. And open your mouth, exhale. Next, inhale, very, very slowly. Unravel that twist. Let your left leg come back through center. Bend the knee, release your strap, and just as you did on the first side, offer yourself a full body stretch. Let some intuitive movement filter in here. Any little wiggles, side to side movements? Have we found a bit more balance if you felt imbalanced after that first side? Wonderful. And then however you choose to travel up to a comfortable seated posture, keep yourself as heavy as you can as you make that journey. You might roll to one side, you might just rock up through center. And my number one recommendation would be a Sukhasana. So finding your knees bending out to the sides, your feet coming in towards the midline. But if that's incredibly painful for you in any way, legs can come out long to the side. Or I'm sorry, legs can come out long in front of you rather. If you have a block or a block-like item, go ahead and grab it and place it on your left side. Very good. So the peak pose this week has been a very, very big, intense hamstring stretch with a lateral side bend. So what we're really doing in this practice is deconstructing all of those pieces and parts. So this bolster, or this block rather, is going to be your support in a great big side bend. So when you're ready, big breath in, fingers lift up high. And as you exhale, start to side bend over to the left, bending your left elbow, allowing that left forearm to rest on your block. Great, now once you get here, you might find that you want that block up a little higher, or maybe even a little bit lower. And you might also find that rather than reaching your right fingers overhead, it might feel nice to just reach them straight up to the ceiling to begin with. We are going to be here for a little bit, so a third option is to bend your right elbow and create a little headrest here. So just letting your head hang into your right hand. Make sure that you're not rounding over into your chest, but instead, try your best to keep your chest open, your right elbow pointing up towards the ceiling. Noticing if your right hip is pulling up off the floor, and if so, try and give a little extra gravity. Of course, if at any time keeping that right arm lifted is too much, you can drop it all the way back down to your right thigh. Just breathing. This one can sometimes come on slowly, but can get intense all of a sudden. So in the same way that the air cools down when clouds block the sun, as soon as those clouds roll away, the heat starts to build once again. So notice, is that heat in your right shoulder, your right ribs, your left hip, or somewhere else? If you're not feeling much intensity at all, feel free to get rid of that block altogether. Maybe dropping either your palm or your forearm all the way down to the ground on that left side. Last few breaths. Let's take these little adjustments together here as you inhale, right finger straight up towards the ceiling. And then exhale, reach your fingers past the crown of your head. There we go. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, straight up. Very good. Exhale, over to the left. Inhale, straight up. Exhale, over to the left. Now pay attention here. We're not coming up through center. We're folding over. So dropping those left fingers just past your right knee. Crawl yourself down the middle for a forward fold. Feel some of that heat drain out of your right shoulder. Maybe roll it around a little bit. Notice how deeply your hips allow you to fold. On your next breath in, slowly walk yourself back in, coming to that easy seat, that Sukhasana once again. Now, if you did find this traditional crisscross seat, go ahead and switch the cross of your legs. So bring the opposite foot in front. This time, sending your block over to the right side. If you remember what height you started out with on that first side, go ahead and set it up there, knowing you might change, and that's okay. Big breath in, reach up, look high. And then exhale, we're going up and over to the right this time, bending that right elbow, planting your right forearm on the block. Right away, are there similarities? Are there differences? What needs to change? What can stay? Remembering that the name of this class is Deep Stretch, and the depth of the stretch doesn't come immediately, it comes with time. So start off with a shallow stretch and let gravity slowly pull you deeper. Lots of options for those left fingers. They can be up, they can be down, they can create a little rest for your head. And then just observe. Maintaining this shape, continuing to breathe. Feel the heat as it builds. With our last few moments here, if you'd like to up the ante, feel free to lower that block or remove it all together. Last 3 breaths on your own, and then we'll take those 3 together. So just settle in. You're almost there. All together here. Inhale, fingers straight up. Exhale, over to the right. Inhale, straight up. Exhale to the right. Very good. Inhale, straight up. Exhale, over to the right. Reach as far as you can, and then drop those fingers past your right knee. Crawl your fingers right down the middle. Allow that left shoulder to roll around just a little bit. Drop it towards the floor. Pick it back up. And gently start to walk your fingers back in, picking yourself back up through center. Wonderful. Go ahead and keep your block nearby, but set it off the edges of your mat here. Depending on what direction you're facing, if you're facing the front of your mat, stay there. If you're turned sideways, you're gonna wanna rotate. So I'm gonna rotate towards the front of my mat here, coming into a tabletop posture. So rolling over onto hands and knees, just give yourself a moment. Maybe the hips need to shimmy. Take a little C curve or even a cat-cow if you'd like. And then this next posture, once again, is definitely going to bring the heat, but we're not nearly as long as some of the other poses. So go ahead, grab your block, bring it up to the top of your mat with you. Very good. Now from here, however you need to get it there, give yourself some help. You're going to step your left foot to the top left corner of your mat. Very good. Now, begin by bringing both hands onto your block. I like bringing my block to its second highest level, so it's nice and broad. Now, tuck your right toes and give yourself a little hop back. You want that right foot to go as far back as you can send it. Very good. Now, drop your right knee once again. And depending on how sensitive your knees are here, you might double up the back of your mat. You might grab a little pillow or a blanket, something to cushion your knee as it rests on the floor. And it'll be up to you. You can keep the toes tucked or untuck them for dragon pose. We'll be here for about 10 breaths. I guarantee that will be enough. So big breath in. Slow breath out. You can always drop the block to a lower level or get rid of it altogether if your hips will allow. Ideally, we're feeling something in the front of the right hip, maybe some stuff all around the left hip. You might also be feeling some abdominal stretching and just some general rage towards the universe and the sound of my voice. You're doing great. Big breath in. You're halfway through. Last 2 breaths. Wonderful. Slowly, before anything else, think about shifting your hips back just a few inches. Reduce the intensity of the stretch on the front of the right hip. Bring your hands back down to the floor and come back tabletop pose. Wonderful. Shift your hips from side to side. Good. Bringing your block back up to that second highest height. If you dropped it down, we'll now switch. However you need to get it there. Right foot to the top right corner of your mat. Hands come up to your block. Tuck your left toes, pick up your left knee, and hop that left foot back as far as you can send it. Good. If you grabbed a cushion first time, might be helpful the second time. Drop your left knee. Cushion that knee, keep it safe. And then if you choose, untuck the left toes. Notice how quickly we've forgotten the intensity of that first side. Can you even feel your right hip flexors anymore, or have we fully shifted to the left? Yeah. Big breath in. Slow breath out. Any changes that you'd like to make with the block, with your hands? We're in it for 8 more breaths. Halfway. Last 2. On your very next inhale, slowly lift your hips up and back just a few inches. Let that intensity start to drain. Very good. Hands come to the mat. Right foot steps back. Tabletop pose. Anything that you need here. Cycle back through. And then bringing your hips back to the mat. Keeping your block nearby or swapping it out. If you have a bolster, this is where that bolster might come in handy. If you don't have a bolster, a block is just fine. A couch cushion, a pillow, anything like that. So we just got the hips really, really open and primed for a longer held hip opening posture. Fear not, this one is much more restful. So we'll head into a supported bridge pose or a pontoon variation. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna lower onto our backs, keeping our knees bent. If you're unfamiliar with this posture, I'll demonstrate both right now. If you're with me, go ahead and move with me. So you're lowering onto your back, bending your knees. If you have a block, you'll slowly press into your feet, pick up your hips and slide that block underneath your tailbone. Now, it doesn't have to be this high. It can be a little bit lower. Lovely. If you have a bolster, that bolster is just going to take the place of your block. So a little more cushion. You don't have to be as specific with where that prop is placed with a bolster. Wonderful. So this is our supported bridge pose. So just as we've been doing, give yourself time. Settle in. Adjust where you need. If you find that block feels like absolute garbage where it is, slide it a little lower or drop it a level lower. And ideally, whatever it is that's supporting your hips, you can give your full weight to it. That is to say, you are not exerting any effort here. Just allowing all that circulation to drain away from the hips, the knees. A subtle inversion here, so just let all of those benefits take place for you. An option that you might take now or hang on to for a few minutes from now is to take this supported bridge and very slowly, very subtly start to walk the heels away from you. So eventually the hips are lifted, but the legs will extend out long ahead. The feet are still connected to the floor. The feet might come a little wider. This variation is called pontoon pose. So feeling that safe, healthy compression on the back side of you as you open up the hips. Very good. Just notice how your breath changes. Maybe even changing up the positioning of the arms here. They might be down by your sides. Maybe bring them to a T or even like a goal post or a cactus position if you'd like a little more opening through the chest. Last few breaths. This is a posture that can sometimes have the opposite effect of that heating, that intensity, that determination that we were speaking of earlier. This posture brings us back down. So maybe just notice if that's true for you, if you feel that little bit of buzziness, that slowness to your mental processes. And with your next few breaths, if the legs are straight, slowly start to bend them once again, sliding the heels in a bit closer to the hips. And only when you're stable and ready, press into the feet. Float your hips up off of whatever props you're using and slide that prop out to the side so that finally your full spine can lower all the way down to connect to the floor. Wonderful. As all of your spine comes to the floor, just notice intuitively what would feel good. Do you need a little windshield wiper with the knees? Maybe it would feel nice to hug the knees into the chest or to take a happy baby. Essentially, nothing is out of bounds here as you just process through all of those shapes, all of those stretches, and ideally, all of that space that you've now cultivated in your hips, in your back, in your chest. From here, the only posture left is Shavasana. So if you're taking a traditional Shavasana variation today, the legs will go long. Heels might travel towards the corners of your mat. Arms will release down by your sides. So if this feels good to you, allow yourself to stay there. Maybe this is just a starting point. If your low back is bothering you, you can always bend the knees once again. If the shoulders feel a little awkward or uncomfortable, maybe the arms come up overhead or find that goalpost position again instead. And perhaps today is one of those days where resting on your back just doesn't feel right. In which case you might rest on your side in the fetal position, or you might even come up to a seat. Wherever you are, just know that you're here for several minutes. You're safe, you're supported. You've been preparing for this ability to let your mind just drift. Allow your body to feel weightless. Every ounce of effort melting away. As you breathe here, maybe notice what channel your mind is tuned into. The outside world? Or are we still clearly tuned in? Thoughts, emotions, distractions are a side effect of being alive. So rather than expecting your mind to be fully empty for more than a brief moment, it's a very challenging ask. Consciousness is colored by those thoughts. So allow yourself to be hella conscious. Take a deep breath in. And a slow breath out. Again, deep breath in. Slow breath out. One last time, big breath in. Exhale, open your mouth, sigh the breath out. And then start to notice, what do you hear? What do you feel? What do you sense as you slowly keep your body heavy but start to blink your eyes open? Bringing yourself back into the here and the now. Eventually, however you choose, you'll make your way to a comfortable seat. Either rolling to the side, finding small movements that grow larger, or rocking right up through center. As you find that seat, allow your palms to press together. Tips of the thumbs hover just over the center of the chest. And with this gesture of gratitude, all that exists within me sees and humbly bows to all that exists within you. Namaste.